Hello and welcome to Uncensored Conservatism. This is episode number 315, and it's time to go around the United States with some news that you may have heard of or possibly did not. And we're going to start here in Connecticut, where Jose Morales was sentenced to 65 years in prison for the killing of his girlfriend. Left undecided is the fate of her daughter, who remains missing at this time. Morales claims that two men entered their home, killed his girlfriend, and then kidnapped the 14-month-old while he was high on PCP. Yeah, or, reefer madness, right? Scumbag should have gotten life, and where's the little girl? I mean, come on, man. 14 months old. Police in Maine have arrested a 17-year-old in connection with the murder of a paddleboarder named Sunshine Stewart. No charges have technically been filed yet, and the police are not answering questions, saying that it's an ongoing investigation, but they may have finally got their man. A fire ripped through an assisted living facility in Fall River, Massachusetts, killing 10 elderly people and injuring scores of others. Unfortunately, Fall River is one of the state's poorest communities, and firefighters were understaffed. Unfortunately, also is the fact that in Rhode Island, Sheldon Whitehouse remains a dickhead. For the third consecutive year, rural people in Vermont were inundated with flash flooding after over 5 inches of rain fell in less than 4 hours. The cause, according to local meteorologists, you guessed it, climate change. Yeah, thanks, Greta. How dare you flood Vermont? Republican Frank Alvarado, Kentucky's first elected Hispanic, has entered the race to succeed Andy Barr in the U.S. House. Barr announced that he is running for Mitch the Turtle McConnell's seat in the Senate come 2026. This should be a competitive Republican primary for this House seat. And, well, hey, Missouri, you're just boring again this week. Well, country music speaks in Tennessee. And country music star John Rich has helped kill a TVA project to build a 900 megawatt natural gas plant in Cheatham County. Instead, the TVA announced they would seek other sites in mid-Tennessee. Yeah, I'm going to leave William Call Me Sarah McBride of Delaware alone for a week, even though still has a dick and balls. Instead, a tractor-trailer cab crashed through the Delaware a concrete barrier on the Delaware Memorial Bridge connecting Delaware to New Jersey and plunged into the Delaware River. The driver crossed 3 lanes of traffic before the 175-foot plunge into the river. 3 members of the weird and violent transgender cult known as Zizians will go on trial together on gun and drug charges and trespassing in Maryland. This group of freaks, led by, I think, this dude, the Lee freak, is linked to 6 murders nationwide. What's with the rain, man? Heavy rains and flash flooding inundated the northern liberal part of New Jersey recently, leaving parts of the heavily traveled New Jersey Turnpike underwater. So you know how people were laughing about those floods in Texas and saying that, MAGA got what they deserve because of whatever. I guess this was God's payback. Residents in Rochester, New York, were ordered to shelter in place after reports that a rare mountain lion was roaming through the town. The local zoo reported no animals had escaped and no extremely well-fed cats were arrested. So, yeah, maybe it's a mountain lion, the first seen in these parts since 2011. Vice President J.D. Vance headed to Pennsylvania to tout the tax breaks in Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill. Vance swung through the state's northeastern region, talking to workers. The appeals court, the Fourth Circuit, recently upheld West Virginia's ban on the sale or prescription of abortion pills, despite the FDA saying it was safe and effective. The circuit court ruled that the state law against the pills take precedence over whatever the FDA says. A 7.3 magnitude earthquake, that's pretty serious, struck Alaska and triggered a tsunami warning. Fortunately, the tsunami never materialized. The earthquake was felt 600 miles away in Anchorage. and no fatalities or damage have been reported. But 7.3 is pretty serious. Potential riders of California's bullet train from Los Angeles to San Francisco are pissed to know that the Trump administration has pulled $4 billion, yes, that's $4 billion, in funding for this ridiculous boondoggle. Private investors are scrambling to find the funds. The project, if ever completed, will have cost over $100 billion to get from Los Angeles to San Francisco. Jesus Christ. People in Hawaii are concerned that their community on the west side of Oahu could be the next inferno. The area is called Wanahai, and they say they have a lot in common with Lahaina, which burnt in a devastating 2023 wildfire. Specifically, there's a lot of old electrical wires and dry brush. So, come on, Hawaii, get on it. And, oh, geez, here we go. This is Jabari Peoples, a black youth in Alabama who was shot in the back by police officers, they say, in a Birmingham suburb. Cops approached them because they smelled marijuana. The police claimed the dude got into a scuffle and reached for a gun. And you know this is going to be something because, well, you know, Ben Crump, a race grifter, if there ever was one, is on the scene. So, you know, ka-ching. I like this picture. They use a picture from like 1957 for this, the Associated Press. A federal appeals court in Arkansas ruled that the state can enforce a ban on teaching critical race theory in classrooms. The suit was filed by teachers and students at Little Rock Central High School, and that's Little Rock Central High School in 1957. A previous order granted an injunction to the students, but not the teachers, but now the appeals court has lifted the injunction altogether. The Florida Supreme Court recently upheld the state's legislative map that eliminated a black majority district in the northern part of that state. This was at the insistence of Ron DeSantis, their governor. The court ruled that the proposed map, favored by the opponents, would stretch from Jacksonville to Tallahassee and was an unconstitutional racial gerrymander, and amen for that. In Dade County, Georgia, their sheriff's office is mourning the loss of a canine dog, a bloodhound named Georgia. The cause of death? Their handler left the dog in a car at 102 heat with no air conditioning while at the sheriff's office. What a dick. Their handler has since been fired. Louisiana officially canceled a $3 billion coastal restoration project partially funded by receipts from the Deepwater Horizon disaster. The project would have restored 20 square miles of land in southeast Louisiana. The Republican governor said it would threaten the state's shrimp and oyster industry if completed. North Carolina was delivered a 1-2 punch in the aftermath of Tropical Storm Chantal and other unassociated rains. Governor Josh Stein declared a state of emergency. At least 6 people are reported dead as a result. And it ain't just Newsom of California visiting South Carolina ahead of the 2028 elections, as Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear decided to also visit the state to drum up some support. Be careful of this guy in 2028, folks. He's an ambulance chasing lawyer. Adelita Grijalva, the daughter of the deceased Democratic representative of Arizona's 7th Congressional District, Raul Grijalva, won the recent primary and faced Republican Daniel Gutierrez in a September special election to fill the seat. So one Grijalva 6 feet under and another Grijalva in D.C. Now, the U.S. House may have gotten younger with Adelita Grijalva, but it sure as hell got uglier. Dangerous and deadly flash flooding in New Mexico has destroyed an estimated 200 homes and killed a man and 2 children at an RV camp. Water came rushing down the mountain and inundated a local river, leading to the disaster. Holly Jane of Texas is an OnlyFans internet star, which is basically a pornographic subscription service for amateurs. Now Miss Jane, a Mormon, would like to have surgery to have her hymen restored. She calls the 3,000 procedure a sacred rebirth. Yeah, after masturbating online, probing yourself with a dildo, and probably fucking someone. Nice try. I mean, these Mormons are weird. All right, first it was Maryland, then New Hampshire, now Illinois, where lawyers for over 900 plaintiffs allege sexual abuse at juvenile detention centers. The complaints involve rape, forced masturbation, and beatings by staff. We need to do a little bit better job of monitoring these facilities nationwide. SanDisk jettisoned plans to build a semiconductor plant near Flint, Michigan, dashing the hopes of Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer to lure the company. Of course, she blames President Trump for a quote-unquote unsure economy amid threats of tariffs. Whitmer's excuses don't explain recent investment in semiconductor plants in Arizona and Texas announced earlier this year. Vance Bolter, the dude accused of killing a Minnesota legislator in July, is probably going to plead innocent in September to the charges. Excuse me. He released a letter to the FBI explaining that he did this on orders from Governor Jazz Hands. Now, I seriously doubt it because Tim Walz can only order his hand to jerk off his dick. Morgan Geyser, shown here on the right, I believe, will be released from a Wisconsin psychiatric facility 10 years after she stabbed a schoolmate to please the horror character Slender Man. Geyser, who was 12 years old at the time, stabbed her friend 19 times. A judge in Idaho lifted a gag order in the case of Brian Kohlberger, who pleaded guilty to killing 4 university students. The order was lifted after the guilty plea, and the judge said it was no longer needed since there would be no trial. Of course, his lawyers are saying the gag order is needed, otherwise it's going to affect sentencing. And that's, dude, you're going to jail for life. Mount Gould in Montana's Glacial National Park claimed a victim when a 42-year-old man fell off the mountain and died. Democrats are blaming Trump for budget cuts since the dude fell from an off-trail climbing route. Judge in Utah set the date of September 5th for the execution by firing squad of Ralph Leroy Menzies, age 67. Menzies suffers from dementia because he's 67. But not when he committed the murder. He's been on death row for 39 fucking years. Come on, end it. A new coal mine opened in northeastern Wyoming, but it's not only coal they're after. Ramaco Resources hopes to also extract rare earth minerals, which are needed for today's technology, and which China currently has a monopoly on. So, yay, that's some good news. Okay, she's from Iowa, I believe, and she's like right there. Her name is Caitlin Clark, and she plays for something called the WNBA. I think it's some kind of women's basketball thing. And they're going to have this all-star game, but she's not going to be in it due to a groin injury, they're saying. So considering the NBA is populated by a ton of black lesbians, officials are not disclosing how Clark got the groin pull. Inquiring minds would like to know. Not saying, I don't know how she got in there. Look, she looks half asleep. But the rest of them is basically a league full of black lesbians. Nebraska filed a lawsuit against Colorado in the United States Supreme Court over water rights to the South Platte River, which crosses state lines. Nebraska is accusing Colorado of siphoning off water. This, Nebraska contends, violates an interstate compact that dates back to 1923. In fact, they want to build a canal from Colorado into Nebraska to get some of that water back. And finally, Minot, North Dakota has a ground squirrel problem. The city of 50,000 residents is inundated with at least 50,000 such squirrels. Although only 1 foot long, the little burrowers are eating up resident lawns. It could be New York where they captured a squirrel and behead it to check it for rabies. But in North Dakota, they really don't fuck around. They shoot them with air rifles or pump carbon monoxide into their burrows and poison the poor little devils. It's sort of like a Auschwitz for ground squirrels. Anyway, that's it. Have a great day. More pleasant tomorrow.